Joining us for the Black Hills AI webinar, Intellect and Intelligence. A recording of this episode and the slides will be made available on the Black Hills AI YouTube channel, as well as the Black Hills AI website. Feel free to enter any questions using the Q&A feature in the Zoom menu. We invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and to visit the Black Hills AI website to learn about our other webinars. And with that, I will turn things over to Jim.
Thank you, Sydney. Good afternoon or good morning. Thank you for joining us today. This is I believe it's our fourth webinar in our Intellect and Intelligence series. And today we're joined by Dr. Manjeet again. We're also joined by Dr. Brandan Keaveny, as well as FX LeDuc. So Dr. Rege is a professor and department chair of graduate programs in software and data science and director of the Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. Dr. Rege is an author, mentor, thought leader, and a frequent speaker on big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence technologies. In addition to being continuously engaged in teaching and research, Dr. Rege frequently consults and mentors various industry-leading organizations, including Black Hills AI, as an expert who provides guidance for building machine learning and AI practice and applying innovative data science approaches. Dr. Brandan Keaveny is the CEO and principal consultant of Data Ethics LLC, where he specializes in professional consulting services in the areas of data governance, analytics, and privacy. Additionally, Dr. Keaveny is an adjunct professor for the Department of Software Engineering and Data Science at the University of St. Thomas School of Engineering in the area of AI ethics. And finally, FX LeDuc is currently the CEO of DeepIP and CEO of Keaveny Technology. He's an entrepreneur for over 17 years with a very strong expertise in building AI software used by the largest companies in the world. And of course, also with us today is Tom Marlowe. He's the president of Black Hills Renewals and the chief technology officer of Black Hills AI. And I am Jim Hallenbeck. I'm the president and CEO here at Black Hills AI. So today, Dr. Rege will speak about emerging uses of AI, and in particular, he'll talk about AI bias and the job impact of AI, the impact of AI on jobs. Dr. Keaveny will speak about AI ethics in development and use of AI. And then FX will talk about practical applications of AI in the law and more specifically in intellectual property. So with that, Dr. Rege.
All right, thank you so much, Jim. And hi, everyone. In our past webinars, we have talked about different aspects of AI, be it the large language models, their capabilities. But as we bring our last episode of our webinar this year, I thought, let's talk about the algorithmic bias, the impacts on jobs, and are we close to artificial general intelligence as well? So let's first talk about bias. I want to start off with this particular example. Researchers scraped a lot of text on the World Wide Web and built this particular early version of chatbot a few years ago, where if you asked a question like what man is to a woman as father is to a what, it would respond back with mother. And, we are happy with the response. It is correct. So if you say man is to a woman as king is to a what, it is to reply with a response like queen. But if you asked this particular chatbot what man is to a computer programmer as woman is to a what, it used to respond with a response like a homemaker. Now that is because it has learned the stereotypes that existed in the text that was made available to this particular AI. Your AI is as good or as bad as the data it was fed on. And this, kind of showcases that. And then, you see a number of such examples where you do not have a proper representation of different aspects of data, different slices of data, as we call it. So, for example, it has been shown that a lot of HR systems are biased towards males, because in technology you have more men working compared to women. So automatically the model begins to think that that is an attribute that is something to be learned. Face recognition systems have been shown to struggle uh, uh, with recognizing, darker skinned individuals. And then when it comes to providing a credit approval, a few years ago, Apple's credit card used to give a higher credit limit to the husband, but a lower credit limit to the wife, even though they are married. Um, so these are all examples where the model ends up learning something from the data, and as a result, ends up treating us in an unfair manner. I spoke earlier about face recognition systems struggling with recognizing faces. Well, here is one such example of that. So in this particular research paper, what researchers wanted to do was, can different AI systems from Microsoft, Face++ from China and IBM recognize what the gender being presented is. And at the top, you have 6 different profiles, differing based on the skin color. Now, these numbers that you see in the table, those are the errors, right? So if you look at type 1, and with Microsoft, a 1.7% error indicates that, that model is really doing well in terms of recognizing what the gender is. It has an accuracy, in other words, of 98.3%, because you have an error of 1.7. So lower the number, which means the model is doing well. Now, as you can see, as you go to the right, as the profile becomes, as the skin color becomes darker and darker, um, the systems are struggling to recognize the gender. And typically, if you look at the last column there, uh, it has an error rate of 46.5%. So that shows us some of these biases that exist in AI systems. And there is ongoing work that happens quite a lot. But many times when you see the first iteration of a AI system that comes out, it may have some of these biases because that type of data is not properly represented in the training set. I'm sure over Thanksgiving dinner, one of the conversations often is about how is AI going to impact workforce, our jobs. If you look at modern AI, there have been 2 waves. The first wave of AI occurred around 2012, primarily due to deep neural networks. And what was shown with a lot of surveys and research during that time was that the jobs that will get exposed and probably as a result of that exposure displaced are going to be a number of blue collar jobs. Could be in manufacturing, could be in warehouses. But this new wave of AI that started around 2 years ago with generative AI. Now, the new surveys say that so on the x-axis, what you see here is the annual wage. On the y-axis is the exposure, the probability of getting exposed to AI. And as you can see here, as you're getting towards higher incomes, you'll have a probability of getting exposed to AI as well. And it is important to make a distinction between getting exposed to AI and getting displaced by AI. If we do not invest in professional development and reskilling the workforce, that exposure can lead to a displacement. There are some other surveys, this one from McKinsey, that talk about when you look at generative AI primarily, which kind of roles can generate most revenue, and where are the companies primarily focusing on. So when you think about AI agents, sales and marketing are the opportunities where generative AI agents can play a big role in terms of automation. Same thing in terms of R&D. You have so much of new research that comes out that summarization plays a big role, and that is something that generative AI does a very good job at. Synthesizing information, helping you understand. Software engineering, whether it is for product development or corporate IT, is moving away from traditional coding to, in fact, having a code generated and a human verifying that particular code. And even going further than that, many times a software engineer would not even need to collect a lot of data and build a model. A software engineer just needs to invoke an existing application programmer interface. Let's say it is OpenAI or Azure. So if you're doing, let's say, sentiment analysis, this particular email that came from my customer, is it positive or negative? In the past, you would have had to collect a lot of data. Now you're just taking that particular text coming in and sending that through an application programmer interface that you're invoking to an OpenAI model, and you get a response back that this is a positive or a negative feedback. So the time to implement has also gone down due to generative AI in software engineering. And then, of course, customer operations. You may have a customer a lot more comfortable speaking with a chatbot, and the chatbot has the history of the customer interactions. So whether it's in health insurance, tell me what my premium would be or what my annual deductible is, all of that, I do not have to wait in line and speak with a human. And from the other side, the corporate benefit is that having humans answer phone calls could also be a huge cost that ends up going down as well. So this particular blue circle that you see is the area of large or most impact as far as generative AI is concerned. Let's also, look at how this wave of generative AI is going to impact different sections of society. Here, what we are trying to showcase here is that women are unfortunately underrepresented in high growth and high wage jobs that may, and as a result, they're at most risk. So on the x-axis, as you go from left to right, the wages are increasing. And on the y-axis, as you go up, that's a higher potential of a job growth. So ideally, you would, prefer, you would want to be here, where, or even higher. So computer engineers, managers, you have low female representation. And these other areas that you see, well, with doctors, high female representation, but not as much in terms of job growth, very good in terms of wage. But when you look at some of these other areas, you have either a lower wage, or not much potential in terms of the job growth. Here is another from that same study from McKinsey, looking at different sections of society. So on the y-axis, what you're looking at is, if you're above the line, more likely to change jobs. If you're below the line, less likely to change jobs. And then we are looking at it by wage, by education. So, lower or lowest wage folks are at most risk of getting displacement, right? So I'm not now talking about exposure, I'm talking about getting displaced. Education, with no college degree, there is a risk of getting displaced. If you look at it by age, that age group of 25 to 49, not much at risk, but 50 plus or 18 to 24, a risk of getting displaced. So kind of jobs that these people do. By gender, females are at most risk of getting displaced. Why? I will talk about that on my next slide. And then when I look at it by race and ethnicity, people of color are also mostly at risk. Now, remember, that doesn't mean that if you're below the line, you're completely safe. And that is where exposure to AI comes in. No matter what you do, you will be exposed to AI. But if you do not reskill, there is a risk of getting displaced. Now, here on the left, this particular table talks about different job tasks and or different professions. And these numbers are basically talking about, how much of that role will be automated due to generative AI. And as a result, there might be more risk to people in those particular fields. Now, when you look at this table on the right, you're seeing that overall in the workforce, there might be more men compared to women working, but there are certain kinds of jobs where women are more at risk of getting displaced due to AI. So for example, if you look at office and administrative support, you have 71.9% women. Same thing with healthcare support as well. So that is something that we as a society need to take into consideration and think about ways to help sections of society that may get displaced due to AI. This particular study that was done by Amazon, they surveyed more than 1,000 organizations and over 3,000 employees. And what they found was that it is very difficult for very difficult for employers to find AI skilled workforce. And those who have the right AI skills are able to command a much higher salary. And as a result, their salaries are getting boosted. It's not something surprising, but this is now rooted in this particular survey. So you have empirical data supporting what our intuition always has been as well. Moving from jobs to AI safety or responsible AI, now AI has become so accessible to everyone that it's very easy now to create a deep fake. So here is a short example of Morgan Freeman's deep fake.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
And you do not even have to be a celebrity to create a deep fake. I created my own deep fake. Here is an example of that.
We are thrilled to have you join this exciting journey into the world of artificial intelligence. This program is designed to empower you with cutting-edge AI knowledge. We are thrilled to...
Now, I unfortunately do not speak French, but my AI avatar of mine does.
Nous sommes ravis de vous accueillir dans ce voyage passionnant dans le monde de l'intelligence artificielle.
Neither do I speak Chinese, but my AI avatar does.
我们很高兴您能加入这个激动人心的人工智能世界之旅。
So this has been able to get the visual nuances quite correct. But in terms of voice, I think this is, and again, that was something that was done about 6 months ago. This is something that I did a couple of weeks ago. I created my own AI generated voice, and I'll play it for you, and let's see if it sounds as bad as I do, or is it better?
This is an AI generated voice sample of my own voice. This has been created from my original voice sample. This is not the real me speaking. With this level of realistic sounding AI, can we trust what we hear anymore?
And then, you can also create songs. So I created a song for Black Hills AI, and I'm pretty sure you guys might enjoy it.
In the heart of innovation, where the Black Hills rise, a beacon of technology lights up the skies. Black Hills AI, where the future's designed with auto, the assistant redefining the line. Oh, Black Hills AI leading the way with auto by our side. We seize the day, Jim Hollenbeck's vision, Tom Morrow's might. Together they guide us into the light. From patent law to AI's embrace, auto's intelligence sets the pace. Generative power and legal aid stream, transforming the field with a seamless gleam. Oh, Black Hills AI leading the way with auto by our side. We seize the day, Jim Hollenbeck's vision, Tom Morrow's might. Together they guide us into the light. From patent law to AI's embrace, auto's intelligence.
Well, I don't want you guys to enjoy that song so much that you forget about our webinar, but I've been told that this song is being loved so much. Every time you're going to call anybody at Black Hills AI, you're going to hear this song first. Now, often there is this talk about are we getting closer towards artificial general intelligence? AI agents are going to, kind of have a larger impact. If 2023 was like a watershed year for generative AI, 2025 is going to be the year for AI agents. So Claude has come up with this application where you can now have AI control your computer.
Fictional demo. A customer, in this case the Ant Equipment Company, has come to us and asked us to fill out a vendor request form. The data I need to fill out this form is scattered in various places on my computer. What we're going to do is ask Claude to look at the spreadsheet, check if Ant Equipment is in there, and if not, move over to the CRM and try and find some more information there. Once it has this data, Claude's going to then fill out the form for us and hopefully transfer the information across to the vendor form. The first thing that's going to happen is Claude's going to start taking screenshots of my screen and quickly realizes that the Ant Equipment Company isn't actually in the spreadsheet. So the first thing it does is it swaps over to a CRM and searches for the company we're interested in. Luckily, we get a search match, and Claude then starts scrolling through the page, looking for all the information it needs to fill out this form. Claude then autonomously starts transferring the information across without me having to do anything, and goes through the steps and fills out all the information needed. And then submits the form. This example is representative of a lot of drudge work that people have to do. This is available in the API. We're excited for people to try it, and we should expect things to get a lot better over the coming months.
Here is a company called Physical Intelligence, and they are going to unveil a generalist robot model that can, unload a dryer, carry clothes to a table, fold them into a neat stack, all without humans. In the next few years, you'll be able to purchase a humanoid at around the current projection for the price point is around $30,000. That can actually do things for you in the house, like with its cleaning, as you can see, even folding laundry and things like that. So obviously, when you see advancements like this, the question is, are we close towards AGI, that is artificial general intelligence? And is there like an existential risk for humans? And let me kind of address that. Now, artificial general intelligence, earlier, that is before AI became, or at least before the second wave of AI, the goal was to create an AI similar to a human in terms of intelligence and in terms of capability. So the definition has kind of changed these days, where we now hear a lot of people talking about, we are close to AGI, probably like 2 years away. And now there is this new term called artificial super intelligence that refers to having an AI closer to a human. So when you think about automation in a generic manner, that is humanoid, helping you around in the house, then yes, that is something that will happen in the next few years. But is there an existential risk? And I don't think so. There is no existential risk to humans. It's a matter of controlling AI and making sure it does a lot of good for the society. With any technological advancement, there are going to be both sides of it. There are going to be the benefits, and if not, properly utilized, if it lands in the wrong hands, it may have a negative impact as well. And we have had experience as the humans controlling larger entities, whether it's, if you think about an enterprise, a company, that's a much more, powerful entity than a single person. If you think about nation states, same thing, much more powerful than one single person. So even if AI ends up becoming, let's say, powerful than a human can still control it and make sure it does a lot of good for the society. And frankly, the same underlying technology um, in AI can be utilized for solving a lot of other problems that we face, whether it's the climate change, whether it's hopefully not the next pandemic, global warming. It could be anything. AI could be part of the solution and not necessarily a problem by itself. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our next speaker, Dr. Brandan Keaveny.
Thank you, Dr. Reggae, and thank you to Tom, Jim, and FX for being amongst the group here today to speak to all of you. So problems, yeah. So let's talk about some problems, more problems here, and these are encompassing of whether an entity or an individual is involved in the development of AI solutions or in the use. So both the two main problems that I'm going to discuss with all of you today would pertain to both of those groups. And so we have the integration of multiple AI analysis activities into one solution. The European Union has recently passed the EU AI Act, and it is the first comprehensive law in the world that is basically saying exactly what Dr. Reggie was just talking about as far as, okay, this is the beginning of the human intervention around what we believe should be prohibitive AI processing acts because they violate fundamental rights. And, this presentation is being given in the United States today, and other parts of the world, especially in Europe. Privacy is seen as a human right, and as that cascades into various processing activities, AI data processing being one of them. It causes pause. It causes this element that, okay, we need to think about what guardrails are we going to produce around that, which leads us into the second problem is there's an inability. Well, actually, let's just go back to, that's fine. This is fine. This is good. So it leads us into an inability to protect privacy. But with problem number one, as I mentioned, in the European Union, it is a human right, your right to privacy. In the United States, this is something that's emerging. There's privacy in certain elements. Privacy laws are much more decentralized in the United States, so it's evolving in different sectors and becoming more prevalent in the consumer space, which is bringing it to a higher threshold of understanding amongst the populace. But when we look at AI activities, and let's just pause for a second, and I want you to think about, particularly if you've used a generative AI tool in the last week, and think about which of those tools that you used. And if you didn't use a tool, is there an active reason why you didn't engage with a generative AI tool? So let's just think about that for a second. For those of you who did engage with an AI tool, as you sat down to write a prompt or ask a question in the form of a prompt, were there any parameters that you are placing on yourself before entering the prompt and having it being processed? And so when you think about your own self-regulation, as far as what it is that you asked, the European Union has basically laid out a footprint, and more than likely similar to its privacy laws, international standards of practice are going to begin to follow this. And so they're saying, okay, you know what? It's banned for you to do any type of emotional recognition. If we're going to be reading people's faces at work or school, not allowed. We're going to be doing any type of processing that would involve behavioral manipulation, not allowed. If we're going to take a whole bunch of images from any type of social media site, scrape it for facial recognition features and use that for training, not allowed. If we're going to take any information and using AI, categorize that biometric information into different categories, not allowed. The trouble becomes, and this is what is related to this problem. Actually, let's go back to problem, before we get to problem 2, if we can go back one slide, thank you. Is that this creates the problem around these tools that are presented as the AI processing solution end-all be-all. A lot of these generative AI tools are being presented like that in the consumer space. And so there are processing activities that maybe the tool itself is not promoting, but the user is certainly engaged in things of this nature that are being prohibited. Okay, problem number 2. Even though that's certainly a huge issue as far as certain elements that would be banned that could potentially still be being done by a consumer of a generative AI solution, the ability around managing the fundamental rights of privacy are even larger. So when we talk about the black box problem, I'm focusing in here on, I know a lot of what's happening behind the scenes. This would be the engineering team of a solution, but I can't tell you entirely everything that's happening. And I can't tell you entirely everything that's being done with the data. And that creates a huge problem when it comes to the fundamental right of someone to request to be forgotten, the right to erasure. This is being codified in the European Union, and it is being codified in the United States. There are the tool set for even learning about what type of data a company may have on another individual, where that company needs to provide all the information that they've collected about that person. When you're using generative AI, that might not be known. The data may be there, but it might not be entirely clear that that data has been used or has been handed off to a third, fourth, fifth party, given the number of people who are involved in the supply chain of data processing. So how would we address that? If we're a user, so if I'm using a generative AI tool and I'm processing data and someone says, okay, I want to know what data you've processed on me, and okay, here you go, this is what we processed. Was that shared with anybody else? Well, I can tell you who the third party says that their third party is. And now, oh, you want it deleted? Okay, I can do that in this extent and this extent, and I can share that with you. But to say that everything's been deleted about you to a certain date, which is what is required, I'm not going to be able to do that. So all these become issues that need to be entertained in the ethical construct, because even in areas where this legally isn't an issue, people's perception is becoming the norm, because perception is running, 3 times as fast as regulations. And so people hear that it's a law someplace and they think it's the law of the land where they are. And sometimes they come to find out that's not true. And then that becomes a brand and trusting issue for whatever the solution was that they've engaged. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. So far, we've had one question come in, and we will handle that in the end here. In the meantime, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to submit those using the Q&A function on your screen. And with that, FX will now talk to us about practical applications of AI directly in legal context and more specifically in intellectual property.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dr. Guy and Dr. Keaveny, for your insights, which are extremely valuable, I guess. And I will try to share very concrete feedback from the field, because at DeepIP, we develop an AI assistant fully integrated into Word that helps IP attorneys to save time on the entire preparation, drafting, and prosecution workflow. And we have clients on both sides of the ocean. So obviously in the US, notably with SAW, Cantor Colburn, or Schumacher, for instance, and in Europe as well, with companies like Jacobici or Placero. And I believe what is interesting to see is that we've been able to create an assistant which is really integrated into the workflow. So where you spend your time when you do this task, to limit the friction and help get the benefits of this kind of tool right at the right place where you need it. What is also interesting to see that we've been able to get the right level of security and confidentiality to be able to support very large firms in using this kind of tools. And so today we are SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001, which are the highest security certifications. And we do not retain and reuse any data for any training, improvement, retraining purposes. And we guarantee our clients with a monitoring exemption, which means that no one at Azure, which is our cloud provider, and at DeepIP can ever access their data, so that they can really rely on it and make sure their client data is safe. Another interesting thing is to see the benefits that are shared by our clients. So typically, the initial expectation is to save time. And it's true that this kind of tools help save time. The savings range between 20 and 50% for the simplest applications, for software and AI applications notably. So this varies depending on the domains and on the complexity of the patent, but still the savings are very significant, and this gives you the room to reinvest a bit of this time into the most interesting part in the most critical sections to be able to, in the end, deliver better quality work for your clients. Another interesting benefit is that our client reports that drafting prosecution is intellectually very hard work, and so getting the support of an AI actually ease the work, so that they are able to work 10 to 20% more on the hardest part of the work. And finally, I think an interesting complementary benefit is that as human, we do a lot of mistakes, and an AI doesn't do errors when it comes to spelling, for instance, or inconsistencies between different informations. And so AI helps dramatically to save time as well on the review step, preventing 90% of errors we used to see. Sharing a very concrete use case, we had a fire chat just a few days ago with André Marais, principal at SAW. SLW is one of our big clients in the US, where the entire firm leverage deep IP to actually draft and prosecute. And so he was sharing that initially the key challenges that drive SLW to actually actively adopt automation and AI was notably, as you know, stagnant budgets, client budgets, while the demand has increased and the cost have increased. So basically being able to restore a bit of margin. Another challenge was that the work is very heavy, and so being able to relieve a bit the attorney's fatigue is a critical benefit and challenge to be addressed, as well as the shortage of talent. As you know, there are less and less junior attorneys going into the IP practice, and so being able to address that to make sure you can build the future of your IP practice is critical. And finally, the latest challenge was about that your clients are always have higher expectations, and so being able to deliver the quality expected, considering the constraints in terms of budget, is definitely a super challenge. And so he was sharing that the key benefits from AI in his point of view are basically being able to give to the AI the part of the job which is not interesting or less interesting, I would say, to be able to get more time, reinvesting this time in the most interesting part of the drafting and prosecution work, but as well as opening new possibilities, addressing at larger scale new use cases like freedom to operate or evidence of use, which are less frequent today. He was also sharing that attorneys share a very strong improvement of their well-being because it reduces the intellectual pressure and it makes the job more fun. And finally, they are able to deliver a better, higher quality work, I would say, in a shorter amount of time to meet clients' deadline. And so when I heard Dr. Righi, I believe that the framework is well set. I don't see a risk of replacement of attorneys by AI, but I believe that attorneys which are not using AI will be replaced by attorneys using AI. So as IP practitioners, I think there is a need to see this complementarity between AI and human brain, human intelligence, to leverage these technologies. It's a tool. It's a new tool. We used to work on paper sheets before. Now we use Word, and yesterday we used Word, and today we are starting using generative AI to make the job easier. And this will help make the job easier, reinvesting this time into the more fun part of the job. AI is extremely good at finding out key insights in a huge amount of information. So typically in a patent, getting a very deep insight on very technical inventions. AI is like an assistant, a second brain you can rely on, which never experience any fatigue, and that prevents starting from scratch when you do something. And so I think it's really an amazing opportunity for any practitioners to learn how to use these tools, to get used to them, and to really feel empowered, feel augmented by these technologies, to be able to work in a smarter manner. And perhaps to summarize a bit what I shared, I think yeah, AI is here to assist. There are no chances of no risk of replacement. There is an urgency to start leveraging these tools because we have an increasing number of users leveraging these tools. And so if you have not tried started, but just get started and develop your complementarity. So basically rely on the AI to do what is routine, what is the simpler, what are the simpler sections. Leverage it to better understand the technology much faster. Leverage it to be more creative, find new angles in the way you think about a problem, and in the end to deliver a better quality. And if you do that, you will naturally reinvest the time you saved in developing your critical thinking. You will be able to reinvest this time into the most complex part, the most strategical section, becoming a better expert in your job, and in the end, developing better value to your clients, because what can be done by a machine will be done by a machine. Yeah.
Thank you, FX. I think that was really great. So I think here's a question that came in two different forms, perhaps from the same person. It came in anonymously. So I'll ask both, and then I think maybe all of you can have the opportunity to respond to this. So the first form of this question is, how does the cost for AI compare to the cost saved with fewer employees? The second question is it's just a different form of this one in essence, but it's to a specific slide that you used, FX. So how does the 50% reduction in time to draft a patent application compare to the cost of the AI licensing fees? So perhaps FX, you can go first, and then Dr. Rege and Dr. Keaveny can respond then. And perhaps Tom, if you have insights.
Sure. So thank you for raising the question. I think it's a very important question, obviously. The way we think about it is that, if you, the average cost, the average hourly rate of an attorney is $500 an hour. If you take a patent application, let's say it's 20 to 25 hours. So if you save 20% of the time on such an application, you save something like around between $1,500 and $2,000. So I think what is amazing with the amount of time saved by this tool is that it makes the ROI of these solutions almost immediate. And in the way we deploy our solution, actually we accompany our clients to make sure they can build the ROI, and that the cost of the application evolve with the improvement of the ROI they make.
Yeah, and let me also jump in here. That's a great question. How does the cost for AI compare to the costs saved with fewer employees? I want to think about cost not only in terms of the monetary sense, but also in terms of the cost of losing business. So here's a scenario. A large insurance company that I know have a number of call centers, and they have health insurance, they have life insurance that they provide. For every phone call that comes in, that is staffed by humans currently, they spend $10 per phone call, and that's a huge cost to them. And of course, I mean, that's average, depending on how long that call goes. On the other hand, if that's those same questions, or at least half of those questions, a lot of those questions could be answered by a chatbot. If I'm a subscriber to that health insurance, I get a question at night, I can have that question answered right away. So you have 24/7 service. And of course, there's a cost reduction as well from the insurance provider point of view. Now, let me talk about cost on also in terms of losing business. So if that AI chatbot that the insurance provider provides does not cater to the needs of the subscribers, just like the humans were doing earlier, that is when you begin to lose business, and that is when the cost of losing business comes in. So hopefully, I think that answers. Maybe Dr. Keaveny has more to say.
Yeah, I would just no, I really love those answers. The only thing I think I can add is just being clear about what would be the people's roles that you're replacing doing. First of all, is it clearly defined what their jobs are? And is it clearly understood what an AI solution that would replace those functions does? And do you need to run things in parallel for a while? So that's going to add to cost. And then also, what is, from a cybersecurity perspective, what is the disaster recovery process or business continuity process if that automation were to cease? And so what would be the cost associated with that? So not only in losing business, in the foreseen elements that Dr. Regge was just talking about, but what would you be doing pertaining to business continuity if suddenly that function was no longer available because of an interruption? Or what if the service ceases to exist and comes in a different way or at a different price point?
So, Dr. Keaveny, those are confounds that we deal with at Black Hills AI on the docketing side of our business. Is if the different elements of our automations go down, how do we cover that and make sure that our customers are well taken care of? So that's a question and an issue that we deal with on a daily basis. I have some thoughts here too, but I first wanted, Tom, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I guess one thing to add on this is anytime you take a look at implementing an AI automation technology solution that can kind of roll out to even more broadly, with the goal of reducing costs or saving money, the key ends up being how that technology, in this case AI, fits within your workflow. So what I mean by that is I've seen situations where folks go out, they purchase a tool expecting to save money, but until that gets really solidly integrated into the workflow, the time savings that you're expecting to get out of the AI tool don't necessarily bubble up. So it's one of these things, like when implementing one of these new technologies, really thinking hard about how that's going to work best within a workflow in order to maximize kind of the time saving piece, which is where a lot of the cost savings come out of these tools, is important to think. So in that case, those numbers can vary a lot based on how the implementation works.
That's a really good point too, Tom, is that just because you buy the black box doesn't mean that the black box is going to save you money just by owning it or possessing it. It's the integration, and the integration includes modification of how you do work on a daily basis. And otherwise, procurement of that black box just adds to your expense without realizing any savings. So if there's any more questions, go ahead and submit those. But if not, I'll share this, and then it might be a good point for us to end on. Is that these AI tools, they can provide the ability for you to increase your productivity. And I've shared this before, and some of you've probably heard me talk about this, but over the past 20 years or so, budgets for preparing and prosecuting patent applications have been relatively flat. Essentially, all the efficiencies that attorneys and firms have picked up over the years have been sucked up by reduced budgets or flat budgets with your clients. And so that means the attorneys are having to do more, or they're having to do the same amount in less time because your costs of operating go up. And at the same time, some clients have asked you to do even more for them for the same budget, or maybe even less. And so something's got to give, right? Your cost of doing business goes up, your kids' tuition goes up, so you'd like to make more money, but your billing ends up being pretty flat. So, part of, I think, the promise of this is the ability to maybe regain a little bit more control of your life, right? Because the only solution so far has been to just work more hours and increase the amount of hours you bill, so you can increase the revenue. Maybe you can make some more money, or either for yourself or for your firm, and so on. So if you can gain 8 to 10% of productivity, which is a pretty meager gain. That's not too bad, right? That's not unrealistic to think that maybe a tool like an AI tool might be able to help improve your productivity by 8 to 10%, maybe even if it's just 5%. But the important thing is that 8% on an annualized basis is 1 month. And if you're able to get an 8% performance or productivity increase, that gives you a month back. And you can either choose to bill more time with that, or you can choose to maybe, work, fewer Saturdays, maybe take a vacation again, which I think will be better for your health and better for your family life, and better for your relationships with, others outside of work, but even inside of work, because maybe you'll be a little bit less stressed. So, I think there's some opportunities for AI, not only to improve your work product, enable you to be more efficient, but also potentially improve your lifestyle. So and I don't want to sell AI as some or portray AI as a lifestyle improvement thing, but anytime we can improve productivity, increase our quality of work, there's these other ancillary benefits, and don't discount the value of those. So I think there's some help on the way with AI tools. And if you haven't started using them yet, I'd encourage you to give them a shot. One of the people I speak with regularly said, hey, why would you not use AI? Because even if you don't use it in your day-to-day work today, you're going to need to have that proficiency, because it's not going to get any worse. It's only going to get better. So eventually it's going to reach a point where you are satisfied with, what it does for you. And that'll be when you start integrating it into your work. So even if you're not using it in your work product, I encourage you to continue working with these tools, become familiar with them. And as you going more to the cost here, is that the immediate impact, is it worth the 50%, the 50% in reduction to time to draft in view of the licensing fee? That your performance boost over time will increase as you become more efficient with the tools and you integrate them more within your workflow. So it's only going to get better. The sooner you embrace it, to at least in some things that you do, the more efficient you will get, and eventually that'll translate into greater productivity. So that's a mouthful, but I sure appreciate everybody attending. Thank you, Dr. Reggae. Thank you, Dr. Keaveny. Thank you, François-Xavier, FX. Thank you for joining. And Tom, thank you for joining us as well again today. And absent any further questions or any further comments, thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.